Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of April 11th, 2018. WCTV is recording the meeting and also live streaming this meeting, and a video audio recording is being made by Mrs. Ruiz. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So now I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Shaverhood for the election of chair.
Thank you very much. Tonight we're reorg the committee, and so at this point I would be looking for a motion for nomination for the chair.
I would like to nominate Joyce for chair.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other nominations?
Yes, I would like to nominate Mike Flaherty.
Okay, I have two nominations, Joyce Bakayaki and Michael Flaherty. Do I have any other nominations? Okay, they are now closed. I would call for a vote. All those for Joyce Bakayaki, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3 votes for Mrs. Bakayaki. All those voting for Mr. Michael Flaherty, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2. Okay, it would be Mrs. Bakayaki, 3 to 2. So now I will turn it back over to Mrs. Bakayaki.
Thank you, but I would like to turn the meeting back over to you, Dr. Shaverhood, for the election of vice chair and secretary.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd be looking for a motion for vice chair of the committee.
I'd like to make a nomination, Ms. Mary Morgan, for vice chair.
Okay, I have a nomination for Mrs. Morgan. Do I have any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor for Mrs. Mary Morgan, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Mrs. Morgan is now vice chair. I would be asking now for nominations for secretary. Do I have anyone that would like to nominate someone for the position of secretary?
I'd like to
sorry.
nominate Laurie Spear.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
All right. I have a nomination for Mrs. Laurie Spear. Are there any other nominations? No. All right. We would like to vote. Everybody, please signify by raising your hand. The vote is for Mrs. Laurie Spear. All those in favor? 5-0. So it would be Mrs. Laurie Spear. So I turn this now back over to Mrs. Bakayaki.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. Would anyone like to address the committee tonight? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to good news. Dr. Shaverhood?
Yes, thank you. I would like to share that there is an OT night, occupational therapy night at DECUS on Tuesday, April 24th from 5 to 6 for staff, teachers, and parents because it's the National OT Month. If you have questions, please email Carol Welburn at wareham.k12maus. So if anybody's interested, please feel free to email back and attend the OT night.
Anyone else? Mary?
Yes, I would just like to welcome our new committee members, Mike Flaherty and Becky Pratt.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Rebecca?
Some good news coming from within our high school. 2 of Wareham High School softball players have been chosen to represent the U.S. as America's team in the Dominican Republic this summer. So I just wanted to say congratulations to Mackenzie and Jocelyn on the Lady Viking softball team.
Thank you. So I also would like to welcome Rebecca and Mike to the committee. I'd also like to say a thanks to my friend Jeff Sweat for his service, and I'm hoping to invite him to the next meeting so that we can do a formal presentation for him. Okay, so we'll move on to The next item is the minutes of the meeting from March 28th. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second?
I guess
Laurie?
I'll second it.
Are there any questions or changes to the minutes? No? Okay, could I have a vote to approve them? Aye.
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 Abstain.
3, 4. Do you want Rebecca to abstain because? 302.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is the report from the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Schwam. Good evening.
Prior to beginning this presentation, I want to publicly thank Jeff Sweat for his dedicated service as a school committee member for the last 12 years and being my friend for the last 4. Rarely have I had the opportunity to meet such an intelligent, benevolent, honest, well-intentioned human being. We had many conversations over the last 4 years and disagreed often. However, in these disagreements, I reflected, and as a result, I've become a more thoughtful, smarter leader. The level of respect and admiration I feel toward him is earned by his willingness to try to understand the intricacies and complexities of public school life. Many people think they understand school because they went to school. I can tell you it is quite impossible to understand all of the various elements that contribute to school life, even as an active participant. Jeff worked tirelessly and was always available to help. When I needed to check my own understanding of events or situations, I called Jeff. When I had to present information, I called Jeff. When I became frustrated, I called Jeff. When I had big ideas, or at least seemed big to me, I called Jeff. Jeff is smart and reflective. He listened and tried to wrap his mind around all of the complexities we faced, all while suspending judgment. He demonstrated his commitment to the children of Wareham. I am blessed to have been a small part of his life while he served on the Wareham School Committee and will forever be grateful to know him and call him my mentor and friend. So with that, I would like to begin my presentation. And I would like to thank the superintendent and the school committee for allowing me this time to share our mid-year FAST, DRA, and Fontes and Pinnell proficiency and growth data. Wareham is experiencing a change in that all of our kindergarten and first grade students are demonstrating fluency in the skills necessary to be successful readers. Last February, we started to look at things a bit differently to see if we could provide our children with some advantages by carefully identifying particular skills like phonics, phonemic awareness, decoding, for example, instrumental in establishing future competence in reading and considering student developmental needs neurologically, we began to notice positive results. What is clear as we look at results on various measures is that we need to stop asking our teachers to teach at grade level and catch students up at the same time in a short 180 days. It is virtually impossible. To mitigate that, we have begun this process to ensure our students secure the identified skills. We began this process last February. We started with kindergarten and are now working in grades K to 4. Our teachers began this process carefully and critically, as they should. They too wanted results, but are well aware that many times programs don't work as promised. Because this work is not a program, but practices that utilize the programs we already have and integrates a neurological approach. Quite incredibly, the results have been positive. We have found some answers to questions that many districts have sought for a very long time. We are currently sharing our strategies with other school districts, and they are experiencing similar results. In fact, 2 districts are scheduled to come and visit. On last Friday, you received a packet of information And in that packet was identified table of contents, the definition of acronyms, which I thought was hopefully helpful, and proficiency and growth data for grades K to 4, as well as fast growth over time by grade level. So you can see from 2014-15 until today, the growth between fall and winter for a particular grade level, as well as by cohort, also starting in 2014-15 and following a class basically for as long as I was able to provide it since that time that we started collecting the data. The data measures one point in time. However, this video that I'm about to show you articulates what we believe needs to be considered as we move forward. Data is only one element, and in schools, we need to consider all aspects of every student.
Everyone learns differently, yet we teach and test everyone as if they were exactly the same. Life is the most difficult exam. Most people fail because they try and copy others, not realizing that everyone has a different question paper. All it takes is a simple Google search. University makes me unhappy, anxious, feel like a failure. It's no surprise that depression is on the rise, that mental health is the skies, and I'm hoping that's the limit, probably for the first time. And don't get it twisted, we want to change the system, not just be critics. But the truth is, we spend a lot of time on the theoretical and tactical, not enough time on the creative and practical. Today, at college, we spend a lot of time in bars and then learn how to code. It's ironic. We end up a barcode. Is a barcode even memorable? No, it's just a series of digits. We end up statistics, wasted potential like unrecorded lyrics. Every day we turn up to the conveyor belt. We're on the assembly line. We become a product of our environment, then get shipped off. Life is the most difficult exam. The history we learn at school doesn't help us define our future. Most of us know how to add and subtract, but not how to multiply our investments. We know how to do multiple choice, but we struggle to make decisions. We know how to analyze a poet's voice, but we can't express ourselves with precision. We learn about the human body, but not how to find ourselves. We learn about the brain, but not about mental health. Geography taught us where things were, but not where countries wanted to go. We learned about modes of transport, but not where travel makes us grow. We learned about new languages, but not about old cultures. We learned about only one perspective, and not opposing versions. We learned how to draw, but not appreciate art. We were always pushed to get to the end, but never knew how to start. We were always told to get over stuff, and not how to walk through. We learned about the cells in plants, and not about the source of our food. We learned how to measure distance, but not the journey within. We were told that X was the only place there was something missing. So listen, what have we really learned? The real tests we will face are rejection, dealing with failure, having to start from scratch, and things not going our way. But tell me, when you were taught perseverance, determination, or persistence, even for one day, the real challenges we will face are being empathetic, understanding people's challenges, and the ability to press pause. Now put your hand up if you think that would have been more beneficial than comparing your test scores. Because at school, you get the lesson first and the test after. But in life, you get the test first and the lesson after. We need character, but we focus on caliber. We need values, but we're forced to focus on algebra. What if we studied more about Pythagoras and not just his theorem? What if we learned about Einstein and not just his work? What if we learned about empathy and not just economics? What if we learned about compassion and not just the compass? What if we learned about emotional intelligence as well as the spelling quiz? What if we focused on attitude as much as we did on our aptitude? What if we didn't just learn how to read, but how to apply it? Life is disguised as an exam, but it's more like a practice test. When you make mistakes, learn from them, and any mistakes can be taken again. You can change the script at any time, make a costume change, and then get back out onto that stage. Don't be limited by society. Your path is unique, don't trade it for less. Life is the most difficult exam because most people are looking at someone else's test.
So I think that's a pretty powerful message, and reaches where I believe this, our mission and our vision, at least the people that I speak to, find this to be very important overall. So yes, this meeting at this time will be focusing on data, but I don't want to lose sight of what that video just spoke about, because it's also extremely important in our success. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where we are and about how the difference between growth and proficiency, because I think it's a little bit difficult to understand it. But growth indicates the hard work demonstrated by teachers. So when we see great growth, we know that there's a lot of work going on within classes. Proficiency is more difficult because the schools are constantly trying to catch up. Teachers need to reach students where they are, bring them to the next level without a lot of help and limited resources as a result of the budget. Catching students up takes time away from grade level expectations, and time is essential. So within that time, decisions need to be made, and often we make decisions to help students get where they need to go, but that isn't necessarily proficient. Our challenges have to do with understanding data in a way that is useful. So working with students, we must have a clear understanding of that data, as well as we have to know our students, who they are as human beings. The data is just the beginning, and understanding that can assist with necessary decisions and inform our instruction. We need to find the right strategies. So due to students' lack of exposure to books and conversation, travel, etc., a multidimensional, multisensory approach to teaching reading stimulates the area of the brain necessary for students to learn to read. And we have to look at changing practices. Working together, understanding data, and implementing the right strategies is possible, even with the lack of resources, through flexible grouping, as noted. So basically, the lack of resources is not anyone's fault. It's what we have to work with, and we do with what we can, and people are working really hard and fast and furiously to help our students to get where they need to go. There are no silver bullets. Reading is complicated. Teaching reading is complicated. Not one program or method has or will reach every student. However, by implementing Lexia, Foundations, Focus K2, guided reading, and the strategies brought to us by Carrie Thurston's knowledge of brain science, as well as the teacher's invaluable expertise and willingness to flexibly group, our students are making significant gains. And this, of course, is without the fiscal support and limited resources as a result of budget constraints. Imagine what could happen if given the necessary support. Our schools are producing as much and as fast as they can, and everyone should be proud. So in Wareham, we often do well with our growth percentile, which is very exciting when we see those results, because we know that what we're doing is working, or at least it's moving students to a place where they were better than they were when they came in. An example of that is last year, the middle school English growth scores on the MCAS were at 60%. Growth in English at the middle school has rarely risen above the state average. Yet last year, we were 10% above the state average in growth, which was very exciting and I would say under-celebrated a great deal and under-noted last year, so I'm bringing it up again because I think it's important to note. Therefore, but we struggle in gaining proficiency because we are significantly behind before we begin, and therefore growth is strong, teachers are working hard, but reaching proficiency is challenging. In order for our students to catch up, we need them to be in the ambitious growth category, particularly those that are behind. As we examine growth, we need to keep this in mind. To be in the ambitious growth category, we need to incorporate the various strategies, examine practices, and find ways to do the work focusing on student success. Although there are 230 kindergarten students, in order to calculate this data and compare fall to winter, I could only count the students that were part of the testing in both sessions, right? Or it would have skewed the results. So kids come in and out, and people move in and move out. And so I vetted out all of those students that were not part of both of the testing and came up with the numbers so that we had equal comparisons and the same students for each, so that it would be correct in the analysis. So according to these results, and this is through the DRA, 106 students of the 142 assessed arrived to kindergarten unable to identify letters, letter sounds, onset sounds, and had little knowledge of the concepts of print. Meaning holding a book, opening a book, reading in the right direction, those kind of things. In December and January, that number has been reduced to 14 students. The gains are clearly monumental. For those students that were involved last year with these strategies, so these are our current first grade students, and we started this work in February of kindergarten the previous year. Of those 56 students in the red, they were not yet above a DRA 7, which is ambitious in September, but we'll call that, which is fine. But 22 of them were at a level 3 or higher. And so the rest we were below, and so we were concerned about that particular group. And of those, when we retested in winter, there were 24 students still in the red. 7 of them were at DRA 2, 2 were at DRA 3, 5 at DRA 4, 2 at DRA 5, and 8 were at a DRA 6. So what we see there is this progression of them moving in the direction that we're looking for them to go, which is also very good news. This is the growth for each of the students and where they were. This is interesting because students can be in the green and still be at a lower DRA. So they could be in the red in the proficiency chart and in the green in this chart. Because growth is just measuring how they're progressing over that segmented period of time. So that's what this analyzes. And obviously, people are working hard when we're moving students. They're doing amazing work. I can't commend them enough. Here's this same cohort group comparing a 2-year period, K to first grade. And looking at growth through FAST. Now, what's interesting about the FAST, the formative assessment system for teachers, is that the green, if you can see that, is 31 to 85%. There's a big difference between a student at 31% and 84%, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So we take this information, we look at it, we celebrate the success, but we're also looking at it carefully, right? Because it's wonderful to see that we had 60% in the green in kindergarten, and now we have 60% in the ambitious growth, right, or above the 85% in grade 1. That's fantastic. But really the goal would be to have all of the kids that are behind in the blue at some point. It's a big goal, but that's where we would like to see that kind of push if we can make that happen. And in September, I indicated that our students would reach 90% proficiency by the end of the school year. Currently, this is where kindergarten and first grade are in their proficiency as of January. So kindergarten is at 90% and first grade is at 83%. And so we're getting there. We are getting there. It's very exciting. And these are so cute, right? The two are our students from at some point, and the others I found on Google, but I love Batman because she's telling Captain America it looks like who she is, which I love that slide so much. Anyway, I'd like to close this presentation by asking you to shift your thinking a little bit, or asking society really to shift their thinking a bit. Rather than looking at data like it is the last chapter in a novel, I am proposing we consider looking at data like it is the beginning of our story, Chapter 1. The remainder of the book is created by teachers and leaders and guided by what students know, are able to do, and what they need to learn. When we look at data as an endpoint, whether the outcome is good or bad, it either disempowers stakeholders or can foster complacency. Data only considers one factor, and given too much power, has the capacity to diminish all other variables. It rarely tells the whole story. Our children are unique, fantastic, creative, strong, and magical. We are all responsible to create opportunities for our children so that they can choose what they want to be, what they want to contribute, how they may impact their world. Absent opportunity, choices become limited. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary?
Just a couple of questions. So one of the questions is, how was a cohort chosen for the, you had said that the, you know, for instance, with the kindergarten, we don't have the whole kindergarten. It's only, what, 142 versus 200 something?
Right, so in order to be included in the data accurately, because I was comparing scores from fall to winter, we had to have the same students.
Right,
So
and how were they chosen?
it's all the students that participated in both sessions.
Okay. All right.
But all of them, all that participated were chosen. Do
Okay.
you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So it was
yeah.
just, I just excluded the ones that could skew, you know, they might skew the data one way or the other if they only took it once, for example.
Right, right. Okay, so my next question is, with grade 1, had that cohort received anything in kindergarten?
The current grade 1?
Yes.
Yes, we started last February
In kindergarten?
in kindergarten.
So then where I have a concern then, because you had quite a few that weren't meeting when they came in the fall.
Right, but if you look at the not meeting and the expectation of a DRA had to be above a 7,
Right,
right?
yep,
What I did was I looked at the students that hung on at a 3 and a 4, which was our end K. The end of kindergarten students, we like to have them be, the DRA says 3, we like 4, right?
yep,
So what I did when I gave you that data was I took that number and I split them out and gave you where they were in that range, so that, because one of the things that was fascinating is that they didn't crash and burn. They held on to the 3, right? They didn't grow over the summer, but they didn't lose. And I think that was kind of interesting and fascinating to me as I was looking at the data and segmenting it out. So it explains where they are, that 54. It explains exactly where they were as measured against the DRA.
So with the 7 though, isn't that where the DRA would expect them to be, or not?
Well, according to, it depends on which guide you choose to look at, right? Which makes it a little bit more complicated. The beginning, at the very beginning, they should be between, we sort of raised it a little bit higher, right, for example? But really they should be between a 4, 5, 6, right in there. Right, we said A to 7 because I'm including all throughout the time, because I'll be back in June to report where we are as a result, right? So I just said A to 7. But usually students in September in grade 1 are around a 4, and if they've been exposed to books and reading over the summer, then they would be at a 6, 7. But that doesn't always happen.
Okay. And then my last question is it possible for you to, at some point, just give us an idea how the other students are doing, the ones that weren't in the cohort?
Well, I mean, I can let you, I suppose I could pull them individually, but I couldn't do any comparison to see if they were better than anything else,
Right,
because I
no,
would
no
only have.
comparison, just how they're doing in general.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that's not a problem.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
You mentioned that 2 other districts were interested in coming to see what we're doing in Wareham.
They're scheduled, actually, to come.
That's amazing, and that's quite a compliment to Wareham and to the work
It's-
that you guys are doing.
it's pretty
Which districts are scheduled?
Pardon me?
Which districts are scheduled?
Mashpee's coming May 4th, I think.
Is it 4th?
I think so. And then Silver Lake is coming May 12th. And then Dennis Yarmouth is also involved in the work currently. Mashpee's doing the work currently. So it's gaining some interesting feedback. And the results are comparable, which is making me feel good about it, because it's nervous. You get nervous putting something in place because your hope is that you're actually going to make a difference in children's lives, right? You don't, and really, hope that it works. So right at the moment, it feels like we're on to finding some solutions. And these are questions I've had for a very long time. I mean, these are questions all districts have. This isn't, I used to sit with data and with 5th graders and ask the same questions. Well, yes, we know this, but what do we do about it? We have this, we have this, we have this. The key is sort of finding the right thing, because we don't have time. You don't have time to try this and try this and try this, right? You really want to try to get the right thing as quickly as possible, and that takes a level of expertise that we're, as teachers, we don't go to school necessarily to learn that, right? So we're learning about what students present with, what that means, and then what strategies we can use to help them. So it seems that it's working, and it's pretty exciting at the moment, but I'm cautiously, optimistic.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mike?
Good evening, Dr. Schwam.
Hello.
Really great presentation. Something you said just kind of struck me. I just wanted to understand it. You said we were significantly behind before we begin. Like, what did you mean by that?
Well, when I arrived in the 14-15 school year, we started to implement the formative assessment system, which is like a DIBELS testing for our kids. Prior to that, you had GMAID and another system. And it wasn't that the system was bad, but it was on bubble sheets, and they only had one Scantron in the central office, right? So everybody had to wait to get the scanning done, which took a really long time, right? And then the turnaround on that was difficult. So this system is on the computer, and it's generated, and teachers receive results right away. So a student takes part in these DIBELS assessments, and this data is collected. And you start to look for patterns over time. And for about 3 years, kindergarten is 50 to 60% below the norm every single year. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of students. That's a lot more than a little intervention group.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to look at that and think, okay, we have to look at this a bit differently because of that. So that's what I mean, is that the data supports that for whatever reason, and this is probably true in many other districts, I'm just not in those other districts, but we're seeing this wave of students that are just not ready for what they need to learn, and they're behind the norm that has been identified, and we have to figure out how to help them get there. And the other issue is that if they don't get there by the end of 1st grade, so if we can't catch them up, then they become farther behind. Because the material gets harder to access, they're still sort of they're still not processing like they need to process to get to that information, and the gap widens and widens, right? So we're on sort of a mission to see if we can't mitigate some of these situations so that at least they have an equal foot as they move through.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And you use the term monumental, and I think that's quite appropriate. These are monumental results. Mm-hmm. What I find really interesting is in the youngest grades, you can just see how they're just such quick learners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just you're going from does not meet to like almost obliterating that, in the younger years, and then in the later years, I mean, I'm talking like 2nd grade, but that margin is narrower, but yet they're doing much better with exceeding. You know, they're actually, you know, pushing it to exceed. So that's really interesting. Thank you.
Sure. Question? So thank you. Oh,
One
sorry,
more,
Mary.
sorry, it just made me think, as you were talking, made me think of one more thing that would be interesting to look at for data is with the cutoff date that has been changed, just if it's possible to get that group of children that normally wouldn't have been entering kindergarten to see how they are doing.
The younger students, you mean?
Yes,
I think Mrs. Chandler took a look at that.
yeah, for behavior. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That would be great, thank you.
So I have a question. So the remarkable progress in reading, does it transfer into any other area?
Well, research indicates that it does, and interestingly, you know, we asked that question. Tracy Cote, we were in a meeting, and Tracy Cote said, "So, does this transfer to MCAS?" Right? It's a very good question. We don't know yet. However, the research indicates that if students can read, and they can read well, and they're not spending their time trying to decode and, you know, trying to figure out what a word is, right? By remembering the sounds of a letter as they're reading, and it becomes fluent, part of who they are and what they do, that all subjects become easier for them to access. That's what most research points to, and we will see, right? We'll see if it translates. Obviously, that would be the goal, that happens.
Is it true that perhaps it's translating to a difference in other, like, discipline? Is that, have we discussed that in the past? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
'Cause math is language dependent. You have to have good vocabulary to be able to attack a math problem accurately and adequately. So it does transfer very well to all disciplines.
Okay. And I know that 90% number was very important to you, so that's awesome. That's really great.
But I think I committed like K to 4, so
Well,
we'll see.
yeah, we'll celebrate everyone.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I would like it to be 100. I've said that before, right? I don't want to choose the 10%. Do you?
No.
Right? but, you know.
So thank you for that great presentation, and for the video and the message in that video.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, could you shut off your microphone?
Did-
Because when you were talking, it was off.
Oh, it's on.
Picking you up on just cracked microphone. Careful, when you start talking, turn your microphone back on.
Yes, you're next. The next on the agenda is the vote on the budget. Good evening, Michael.
School committee.
So, all right, good evening. Let's start from the beginning. All right, so I've only got a few slides to present this evening. So, and I realize 2 new members, but I know you've attended some of our previous presentations, and I can go into a lot more detail on anything you like, if that would be helpful. But I just thought a few slides just to lay out the lay of the land. So I did want to just reiterate the budget priorities, which were about managing class sizes, maintaining and improving discipline, meeting special education needs of the students, maintaining the current programming, and delivering on teacher evaluations. So those priorities really guided a lot of our decisions and about the budget as we developed it, and also about how we made reductions. So the budget that we have at the moment, this is the budget which balances with the town's budget. So this is the one we've agreed tentatively with the town administrator, just at my level. So that's the net budget, which is, essentially, so net is supposed to be everything that is directly involved in the education of students, and non-net is supposed to be slightly more periphery things, and really the vast majority of that for us is pupil transportation. So it is a distinction the state makes and is reflected in the town budget, but it doesn't hugely impact how we deliver this education. So, and that is broken down by major account, as shown here. This information is is very similar to what we've presented in the past. The big increase really is in that payments out of district schools, and that's partly increase in tuitions, and a smaller increase in transportation. As I say, I'll run through these slides. If you have any questions at any time, please stop. So that breakdown by major account is based on closing Minot, and I realise that's not been finalised yet, but in order to be able to produce a slide we had to make some assumption about how it was going to be delivered. So these are the reductions we've talked about in the past, the first round of staffing reductions, the leadership restructuring, savings to transportation, and closing Minot. And if we were not to close Minot, then, and again I can go into more detail, but we'd be looking at further teaching position cuts, a reduction in some programming, and reduction in transportation. So where we are, so in terms of town meeting, just because that's kind of right round the corner, that's April 23rd. At the moment, the town administrator will essentially present the requested budget. So here, and one column is the requested budget, and for us, that was the budget that school committee approved way back in like December. And then he also has another column which is the balanced budget, and that's the number which we have agreed is $28,800,679. But technically, he has to until we give him a different number, he has to take that requested budget from the school committee, because so far he has not received any other number. All right, that's it. So that's a really quick run through where we are. And I thought it most useful to open up for discussion and questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Mary?
So could you explain again how the town is paying for the portables if we move?
So the portables would be through capital, so they would borrow the funds to pay for that, and they would pay out of their capital funds rather than out of operating, and they'd pay it out over, so say it costs $1 million, they would pay it over 10 years, so that would be $100,000 a year, which would come from the capital funds. I mean, that's really high level numbers.
So another question that was recently brought to my attention was concerns that the fire department might have with DECUS and moving children to DECUS. Are you aware of any of these concerns?
So whenever there's a big mood change in the numbers of students, a whole bunch of people are involved in ensuring that we safeguard the safety and well-being of students and staff in those buildings. So the fire department have been there, and they've met with the superintendent. We've also met with the town administrator and the building inspector, and looking at the impact of an increase in the number of students and what that would mean in terms of exits and entrances, and ensuring that there's fire safety is ensured. So there's a whole bunch of things going on. Yes, but yeah, obviously if anybody had serious concerns, that would not be something we could do. But my understanding is, I know we're within the capacity of the DECUS building as it is currently, and with the addition of the portables would be sufficient.
So my question, I guess, would be then, would we have to spend money to make sure things are up to code, or?
I think so. The plan would be to ensure the portables are of a sufficiently high standard to meet all those needs. So that we would make sure the portables wouldn't be attached to the building, so it wouldn't impact. It wouldn't be directly part of the school building. It would be slightly adjacent, with maybe a covered walkway to get there, and that improves some of the safety features of the portables themselves.
We also met with the building inspector and went through some of the questions, and he was looking at, if we attach, then there would be some specific things that we would need to do. If we do not attach, but merely, as Mr. McMillan said, a covered walkway, then it's a standalone, and that puts us in a different perspective. And so, you know, he's helping us look at these things as if we move forward, then we certainly would we would never put our students in any harm's way we would certainly do the right thing.
So I guess my last question is, are you aware of what Plymouth recently did with their budget?
No. No.
No?
Hey, no.
They, and they wanted, the town wanted, administrator wanted the school to cut it by 2 million, their budget by 2 million. So people came together and rallied and spoke up for their children in Plymouth. And they were able to, they broke up obviously they broke up the departments to vote for each of the departments because the school committee refused to accept that budget cut. And they had enough people come to town meeting and actually defend it. And my personal opinion is that Wareham could do the same, that people in Wareham would defend our budget. And it's not, in the fact that it's not even a level funded budget.
So, so it's not my job to defend the
No, I know.
town's budget, but I will say that when I look at the town's budget, so I agree. So if you feel that the town is not prioritizing the right things, or is not using money the most effectively or efficiently, then I think those sorts of steps are warranted. But so if we think the schools should get more money, I don't know where you take it from. That's the problem. And I think that's the answer. That's something we need to answer if we're going to get an increase in our budget.
And I think bringing it to town meeting, that's how the people decide.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? I just personally think that it's going to be, and I hate to use this word, but detrimental to close Minot. That we're going to lose more families. There's a concern about Deacon's, whether some different building concerns there. And then I'm concerned about preschool being at middle school. I had preschool at middle school in the summer, and it was, to me, a safety concern. I just want what's best for the children in Wareham, and I think that if we all came together, that we could get that.
Thank you. I would just say it's a slight increase. It is an increase on. It's a 1.5% increase on last year, so it is slightly more than level funded. It's not level service. I think that's
Right.
a big difference, and that's what's difficult.
So, Mary, I'm familiar, I don't know the details, I'm familiar with the story that you're telling, but I think it's a little different in our case. So they developed a budget with the town, similar to what we did. Yes, it's probably for more. But then going into town meeting, there was a small group of people that wanted to take some money away from the schools, and they stopped that from happening. This is a little different. So we've worked for 6 months, we've worked on this budget, we've worked with committees in town, and come to this number. And yes, we all wish it was more. But I think that's a little bit different. I think what you're describing is that someone tried to take away from the budget that was agreed on. And this budget that we're voting on is the budget that we've, again, worked for 6 months to come to an agreement on with the town. And like Michael said, they don't have it anywhere else to give it to us from. But I agree with you. I agree that it's important, and we wish it was more. Does anyone else have any questions? Mike?
Getting back to the portables. Getting back to the portables. I was talking about town meeting. I mean, those need to be approved at town meeting.
Right.
Yes.
All right, and there's 5 portables that are hanging on that, right? Like we're talking about 5 portables.
Yeah, essentially the exact configuration would depend on, how the company decides to put them together. But essentially it'd be around 10 to 12 rooms, 10 classrooms, a couple of offices.
So it's a little, it's it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, because there's no guarantee we're gonna get those. But let's say we don't. Let's say town meeting says no. You can find $800,000, you can find $1 million like that. I mean, we could put that somewhere else, they might say, right? So what would be, like, I guess call it Plan C, if we don't get these portables and we vote on this budget as it is right now? And that's the question to the superintendent, actually.
If you would, if you voted on this budget, the budget that you would vote on would be this number. The question is, are you going to vote on this number to close Minot? Because there are other ways that you can get to this number without closing Minot. So the question would be, is this number is based on Minot's closing? If that's the case, and then the town meeting would not approve the borrowing for the portables, then I would be back at the committee. We would be moving other grades into a configuration that is not ideal at all. There's, you know, we've explored moving 7th grade to the high school, 3rd and 4th to the middle school. If you move 7th and 8th grade to the high school, there is no place in the high school that you can designate as just 7th grade area. So we would have 7th graders in the mix with 12th graders. If you move 4th to the middle school, as this would propose, there's a wing at the middle school that you could block off, so you have 4th and 5th grade. The other piece is, if this would happen with 4th and 5th grade, and I know I'm getting a little bit away from your question, and if you don't mind indulging me, we've also looked at the busing schedule. So what we would do is we would have two start times at the middle school. We would have a 6th and 7th grade start time, and they would be bused with the high school students. And we would have a 4th and 5th grade start time at the middle school, and they would be bused with the elementary students. And you can put 4th and 5th graders in a wing at the middle school, and really that would be an isolated area. I don't have that availability at the high school to do that for 7th grade, hence the fact we have not proposed moving 7th grade to the high school. Moving 3rd grade, you know, we've looked at other areas to move. Where else could we possibly move 3rd grade for a period of time until there's a new build? There's really no other building location that is currently usable to move 200 students. So we would probably be back looking at where else we could put them.
Okay.
And I know that's not a definite answer.
No, you don't have to sell me on how less than ideal it is.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal.
This is
It's
less
not.
than ideal, and that's even more less than ideal.
It is.
And at this rate, at this number, we're losing how many FTEs?
We're losing around 32 FTEs.
And around 32.
Yeah.
And if we moved heaven and earth and tried to keep Minot open, we'd be losing how many FTEs?
So around 36.
How many?
36.
So only 4 more?
Yeah, the problem is it would be, so the total number doesn't go up that much, but where you have to make the reductions changes, and more of the reductions would come against from teachers. And so it would
I'm
impact.
sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
More of the reductions would have to come from teaching staff and
That's
other
what,
instructional staff.
that's what I asked, though. Like, so you lose more than 36 if we kept Minot open?
No, so 30. So if we keep the beauty, well, if closing Minot means that we do, for example, have one less principal.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't close Minot, you don't have one less principal. So you now have to cut to additional teachers to make up the difference.
I might have been confused. I thought it was like about 55. Like in the 50s somewhere if we decided to keep Minot open.
Depend,
If you're saying it's only a difference of 4 FTEs,
Right.
we can find that somewhere, can't we?
but there'll be more teachers cut.
That's what I'm not understanding.
Teachers are not FTEs. So FTE is full-time equivalents, and so it can be teachers, you know, principals, assistant principals, other
Okay.
support staff and so on. And cutting a school allows you to cut from all different areas.
Alright.
Whereas if you don't close the school, then you have more of your cuts are focused on instructional staff.
All right, so how many teachers do we lose if we keep Minot open? How many more teachers do we lose?
It's around I think it's 8 to 10 more teachers.
8 to 10 more teachers.
Right. And what it would do would be, it would raise class sizes at every level.
Yeah, I think I saw that, close to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that comes back to those objectives or budget priorities.
Right, right.
Was protecting classroom sizes and a discipline in the schools and so on.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I have some questions on the budget itself, like
Okay.
some line items. All right, so I compared the latest one you sent with the previous incarnation, probably the 29 million one, and for some reason, maybe it's renamed or something, but in the newest one, what do you refer to the co-op school as? What's it called?
An alternative high school, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it? It's not like the junior senior, because the other one says junior senior, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's alternative high school.
Okay, got it. Because I noticed in the previous incarnation, there was, junior, senior, but I don't see it in the new one.
Yeah, it's alternative high school.
Okay, thank you. Also now, so in this current plan, we're saving about $170,000 on busing.
Yes.
Right. But yet I still see, it looks like busing is still increasing by about almost $200,000.
So so sadly, we're decreasing on the increase. So the total increase that would happen to transportation if you don't make that decrease is that increase plus the decrease. So, so the problem is our transportation is increasing. So if you remember this slide, actually I can show you. So, sorry. This is the slide that we did, just showing how the budget created. So the increase here is 321,000
Yes,
in transportation.
yes,
So, but you take the 170 off that, then you still have an increase.
all right.
It's just less.
All right. And now, if at the very last page of the new budget, I'm seeing some I'm sure they're explainable, but there's some really wild swings here.
Yeah.
It's, like 300% or so. It's like, for example, let me get my other glasses here. So, transportation services, contracted services, why is that going up so much? It's, this current year is 22,000, next year is going to be 106,000?
Regulated student transportation services contracted.
Increase of
services.
376%?
So that is well, let's see. That is, sorry, just bear with me, I'll get the. So just while I'm opening.
Page 14, if you bring it up.
Yeah, no, God, I'm just getting the budget document. I think it's mostly just, better categorization, because you'll see there's some big reductions in other areas. But
But is contracted services, is that like, like temporary bus drivers, or what is that?
Well, that's when we use companies to provide any kind of service. So I'll tell you what's in there if you just give me 2 seconds. So that is interesting. So that is where we've put a cost of homeless transportation. So because it's not special ed, so that's why it's in regular education.
But you're budgeting that much more, though? You're expecting that much more?
Yeah.
Really?
So we have it's increased a lot this year, and so we're expecting that to continue.
All right, and then a little further down, there's transportation services professional salaries. That goes up 316%, starting at 18 and arriving at 77,000.
Yeah, that is. Sorry, just bear with me. All right, that is. Sorry, just bear with me.
No problem.
I'm almost there. So that's gone up because.
And just while you're doing that, to the superintendent or Madam Chair, but when after we vote on this document will be, if it's as is, it will be posted online, right? Thank you.
All right. So, I think I'll get back to you for a definite reason, but see if you look on the previous line, there's a couple of other lines that have gone to 0.
Yeah.
And that's just that money being reallocated to that budget line.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I expected there's some big cuts there with $170,000, but yet I'm seeing a lot of things going up, and that's what I'm kind of confused about.
So if you look, overall, what the biggest increases is driving the budget is the overall increase in contracted services. And that's from our district and for a homeless transportation.
I mean, if you have to get back to me later, that's fine. But I recall separately now from transportation, I recall earlier this school year, it was, I think the teachers union came and spoke and mentioned that, some of the substitute teachers, or these substitute teachers weren't getting minimum wage.
Yes.
Does this budget ensure that every single person who works at Wareham Public Schools is earning at least minimum wage?
So, what is how many hours a day is it teacher works? Because what you mean is if you take the daily rate and divide it by the number of hours they work, and the minimum wage at the moment is 11, I think, right? It's $11 an hour. Mm-hmm. So, and the number of hours a substitute teacher worker is 7.5, I think. Is it 7 hours? Substitute teacher. So I think the short answer is maybe. It depends what the final rate we set is.
This budget takes the substitute pay scale to $85 a day.
But how much is that per hour? I mean, if they're working a whole day.
7 hours divided by.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How much per hour?
They would get $77 if it was minimum wage, so they're making more.
Yeah, so
okay.
7 hours a day.
So not just.
Not much, but.
Yeah, but not just substitute teachers, but everybody in Wareham Public Schools, they're making at least minimum wage under this budget.
I'm trying to think. Paraprofessionals? I don't think so. I would need to check the number of hours, because obviously everyone's paid hourly.
Yeah,
So-
well, here's the thing. I memean, when I heard that, I couldn't believe it, first of all. Second of all, I mean, I don't want to institutionalize, paying someone less than minimum wage. So, I mean, unless we're prepared to start moving some line items to ensure that everybody is going to, be paid at least minimum wage, then I'll probably have to vote no on this.
I think what we would certainly, to get back with you, would be, we will work out the pay scales for the various groups, because there are so many various groups, and if there needs to be some adjustment, we're happy to make those adjustments with line items.
I'm all set, thank you.
Mira, what I wanted to say about the subject, about the town and the school department also, is we had the number that we voted on previously, and the town had a number, and we made reductions, and the town did come up to our number. We came down to a certain point, and we said we just couldn't go any lower, and the town did compromise and come up to the number that Michael is proposing tonight, so that did happen.
Okay, I just also want to add that I think that we still could come together as a group and fight it, but that's my own opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've got a question. The current budget number that the town has, it's the one that the school committee approved back in
Yeah.
December, the 29,413.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In that budget, in that picture of what our finances would be, were we considering closing Minot at that point, or any reduction in FTE?
A significant reduction in FTE, but not closing mine at that point.
Is it the same number of, are we losing the same number of employees with that? And then the rest of the savings is just from closing Minot?
Yeah, but there's a lot of FTEs, and so the difference between those two budgets is about $600,000.
Right.
So, and closing Minot saves us about $1 million. So that covers that gap and then some.
So even if we were to go back and get that, the number they have, would we still be losing 32 employees?
No, not that many, no.
Do you know how many we would lose with that?
So we would have to save 1.5 million. So we did actually plan to, that would involve reducing.
It's about 20,
Pardon?
20 some,
Yes, yeah, it was in that
20
range.
plus
Okay.
FTEs.
None of these are good options, and I'm sorry if you feel like we're kind of
No, it's,
going
and it's
at
your
you.
job,
You're the messenger.
it's
Bless
just
your
hard
heart,
to
you
sell.
know.
This is
But
a good option.
It's very frustrating to have to vote on bad or worse. Is kind of how I'm feeling about the entire situation. Wareham's had to go through quite a lot, and our schools are already doing all that they can with what they have, and we're talking about scaling that back through no fault of anyone here. I want to be sure to make sure, and I appreciate all the work that I know our predecessors did on the budget, but it's just really frustrating, and I can't seem to wrap my head around losing employees. That's where I'm just having a really hard time, and I know that there's nothing we can do about it, but I still just want to express my concern and deep disappointment, because I feel like we are letting down the people who work for us.
Did you want to say something?
So I think that there could be a couple scenarios here. Number one, you would vote the number tonight. 2, you would choose not to vote the number. This number of 29.4 would go to town meeting. What could happen at town meeting would be that the finance committee would then say they're voting the number of the balanced budget, and they could ask for a vote. We could see if there would be enough people that would come to honor the request. At this point, I have to tell you, I'm not sure where the money would come from. With town meeting, it would be taken from some other department. If we would come back to the 29, or the 28.8, then the decision that would come to the school committee would be, how are we going to meet this number? As we move forward, you know, our clock is ticking as far as if we're going to purchase portables, we need to get those portables spec'd and ordered, because there is a time period for that. If we're not, then we certainly need to begin notification of the reduction in force to give people fair notice of when to find other employment. It's not an easy decision. It's something that we've all wrestled with for the past 6 months, and we just don't know where else to get the money. And not that this is any consolation at all, it certainly is not, but we looked if our budget had gone on the same trajectory as it has for the past, for 10 years, if that trajectory continued, we'd be sitting with about $6 million more. I would venture to say we would not be having this discussion tonight. And so there's many different issues that have affected the school budget. And at this point, our outcomes are not positive at all.
Go ahead.
Good.
No. So at this point, our options are to vote on the budget as you've presented it?
Yep.
Okay. Is that what we should do at this point?
I think we need to vote. Either this is the budget that you're willing to submit to the town, or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, then at the next school committee meeting, we'll need to be prepared to address the budget once again.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify, a vote of no right now would bring this just back to the next school committee meeting.
Very
in the
likely.
Exact same.
Well, no, a vote of no
Town
right
meeting
now
is
would bring
23rd.
us, would go to town meeting with an unbalanced budget.
Mhm.
And the likelihood of the exact same number coming back to us again.
That would be my, my belief, that town meeting is very, or the finance committee is very likely to submit this budget at town meeting, because this does provide a balanced budget for the town.
Okay, so at this point,
Right. I think, and while I certainly have great hesitation in saying this, you can vote this number, but not vote how to get to this number tonight. If you still want to explore options of what we can do to make this number work for our district.
I agree with what Ms. Becchiacchi said last meeting, where I want to know that these numbers are fixing the major accounts and everything behind them, whatever we vote for. I think one way or the other, a vote should happen tonight, yes or no. So we're not in limbo. And let's say it's no. I mean, we've still got another week. I've seen the selectmen show up at town meeting in the high school to make votes, seconds and minutes before the meeting. And we could do that if we had to.
so with due respect to the new members who, I mean, this is your first meeting, but we have been working on this for 6 months, and we have staff and teachers and students who need to know, what direction we're going in. Are we closing a school? Are we not closing a school? They're waiting.
They're not going to know till after town meeting. Even if we vote yes on this, it's not accepted till after town meeting.
Okay. Okay. So, Michael,
So normally we've had 3 votes, one for the net number, one for non-net, and one for the total.
mhm,
So you ask for a motion for
mhm.
the net.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions before we vote? No? Okay. So I would ask for a motion to approve the net school spending amount of $26,982,843. Sorry, should I say that again? $26,982,843. Do I have a motion to accept that number? Okay.
So moved to move it along.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
No.
Nay.
Abstain? Okay. 2-1. Do you want me to continue with the other?
You can, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, at least
Do I-
see the non-net.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the non-net school spending amount of $1,817,835?
So moved.
Second?
Did I move it?
No, yeah, I think you.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Oh, discussion?
Oh, sorry.
I am comfortable voting for this particular figure because you made it clear that the bus driver, well, I already know the bus drivers are making at least minimum wage. So I am comfortable voting for that number on non-net.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just, what was the number in the previous budget,
Which previous budget?
the one approved?
They approved for the non-net in
Yeah.
the approved budget. All right.
And something else just popped to my small brain. So I'm on the Cape Cod Collaborative Board, and every year they have an outside agency come in and audit, and it gives an unbiased look at things. Have we ever considered that?
So all right, so we had to do a report to the state, and that report's audited every year.
Right, but having someone come in and look at the whole picture instead of bits and pieces of it.
Are you talking about the school department or
Yeah.
the town?
No, the school, well, the town too. I mean, I think we all could use an unbiased audit.
Let's go. All right, wait for it.
I mean, it's mainly transportation, right? So
Yes.
it probably hasn't changed much.
It's not.
The last,
So this current year.
from the
No,
last
it's, do
proposed.
you know what?
budget.
It's actually, it's gone up slightly because
It's gone up.
we originally were planning to try and make more reductions in transportation. Remember, it was $200,000, but we actually
Okay.
reduced it to 170, so it's actually gone up slightly,
Uh-huh.
30,000.
That's good to know.
Because it's just, we're finding that we need a lot of transportation services, and it's very difficult to make significant reductions.
I actually have the number. Do you have?
Pardon?
I have the
Oh, you do?
number.
All right, perfect.
It's $1,748,992.
Okay, thank you.
And here's the thing, I have no doubt, well, let's vote on that before I have any, let's vote on that.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
No.
One. And all those abstaining? So 3-1-1. Do you want to say something before we move to the total?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I have little doubt that one way or the other, we're going to arrive ultimately at that $28,800,679 figure. And I was, like Ms. Pratt, I was gonna, you know, I wasn't part of the 6-month process. I was ready to abstain with Ms. Pratt. But it upset me to hear that we're still gonna institutionalize, as it is today, you know, paying Wareham Public Schools employees less than minimum wage, and I can't support that. And so I have no problem. I have big problems with a lot of things, but I think we all do. But on balance, this is what we're left with. But once you guys can tell me that the line items add up to numbers that will pay our employees at least minimum wage, then I'll be on board. No, that could be tonight.
Well, I think that's what was just discussed, is it not? That we would vote on the number.
No, that was
And we could go
discussed
back to
after the
detail.
fact. But
Oh.
like you, I want to, like last school meeting, I want these to be fixed. I want to know what I'm voting on, and I want it in cement.
Mm-hmm.
And while I appreciate, and certainly will look at that, if any of it involves union contracts, that means we have to go back and negotiate with the union, which will take time to do.
How much do you think it would, how much off are we? How much do we need to find to pay our employees at least minimum wage?
I mean, so, you know, so as an example, so we have so if we look at paraprofessional contract, we have different numbers of people at different steps. So how many of them, and how much it would cost to get all of them up to minimum wage? And if we say, I mean, we would need to look at the number of staff.
So I mean,
and
so
number of
maybe it can't be
steps.
done tonight, but if you guys want to meet before town meeting and come up with that scheme, then I'd probably vote for it.
So should we continue to vote on the total?
I mean, presumably, well, I guess you could.
Okay. Dr. Shaverhood, is that what you would?
I would suggest you finish the vote.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the grand total number of $28,800,679?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All those abstaining? Thank you. So we will investigate what our options are as far as before town meeting in order to get that number approved before town meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Michael.
Is
we're
Michael
doing
staying?
the next
Yeah.
one.
Oh, okay.
So next on the agenda is a vote to approve the new grade structure for the new Minor Forest building.
So as part of the project currently underway to build a new elementary school to replace the Minot Forest project building and the Deacon's building, that would involve changing the grade structure that we currently have in place. And the new building, which would replace Minot and Deacon's, would be pre-K through 4. And we would like to request a vote of the school committee to approve that as part of the MSBA project.
Okay. So could I have a motion? Do you need this exact motion? Here, or do,
I think
Do
the
you have
language
any-
is there.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, what's the question?
I was just asking if we need this motion or if you if you would like to read it.
Right, I'll be happy to read it.
Okay.
The motion would be to approve a change in grade configuration from grades pre-K 3, 4, and K 1, 2 in a separate school for the Wareham Public School District students to grades pre-K through 4 in one elementary school to reduce the number of transitions in the early years and overall better address the students' social, emotional growth in their academic performance as described in the educational program. This will be entered into MSBA and then submitted. So we would be asking for your approval to have the proposed school pre-K through 4, and it would be in one elementary school.
So pre-K through 4, the new elementary school, and still the same 5th through 7th in middle, and 8 through 12 in high school.
Yes, if the move from 8th grade to the high school would occur, and yes, from 5th grade through 7th grade would remain at the middle.
But this motion is just to approve for the new
Yes.
building, the pre-K through 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
So could I have a?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Does
Aye.
any?
Yes.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we vote?
I just want to commend the work of the committee. It was a long process, and we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. It's a great committee. Very good committee.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? So going forward, we will have an item on every agenda to update on the school building committee and the process. Right now, the push really is on community outreach, so that will be happening, and the community outreach subcommittee would like to come to our school committee meeting next time, and they'd like us to vote to, as an approval, so going forward. So we'll have that happen at the next meeting. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and the next school building committee meeting is on April 30th, if anyone's interested. So next is the superintendent's report.
Yes, in the newsletter, you will find the approval of bills and payment warrants. I'm more than happy to read them, or, thank you. All right, so I would be asking for approval for payroll weeks and bill warrants.
Kim, excuse me, you would have to read the two that I wrote on yours.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't have them in the newsletter.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. All right, so I have bill warrants added for April 19th in the amount of $54,166.91. I have bill warrant added for April 19th in the amount of $3,034.79, as well payroll week ending on April 7th in the amount of $152,916.46. So I would be asking for approval of the ones that I just read, plus the ones you have listed.
Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I would also remind everyone that we go on April vacation. Beginning on Friday, we will resume the Monday following, I don't know, what's the date, the 23rd?
23rd.
Yeah.
Do you want me to? I'm sorry. The members for the committees, is that, okay. So we'd be looking for 2 members to serve on a committee for the Onset Women's Club Scholarship. And what's required of that is to attend a scholarship meeting at the high school on April 26th. Is there anyone that would be
I'd be happy
interested
to.
in? Okay.
What time is that at?
I believe it's at 3.
Is it
Okay. I can do it if no one else is available. Also, the Unit B negotiations, we're looking for 2 members to join that committee.
Does that usually meet at night or not?
Go ahead.
We will work around the committee.
Okay.
So if you're interested,
All right, so that's, you need 2?
I do.
All right, sure.
I will also. If nobody else is interested.
Oh, did you just say?
I did.
Mary-
Oh,
Mary-
and
yeah.
okay, okay.
Well,
And I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear, it's Unit B is the negotiations that you're conducting right now.
yes.
Okay.
What I would also say that you just volunteered for is sick bank committee and possibly other negotiations. So
I'm
welcome
sorry
to
to
the
make that
club.
clear.
As long as you work on that schedule, like you said.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other business that wasn't anticipated 48 hours prior? No? Then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.